Welcome to the channel, The Nomis Hunter, and today, right now, in this very moment, we are about to dive into something so extraordinary, so mind-bending, so absolutely shocking that by the time this video is over, you're going to be sprinting to every coin jar, every old drawer, every forgotten piggy bank in your entire house, because what I am about to show you, what I am about to reveal to you today, could change your life forever. Imagine holding something in your hand, something so small, so seemingly ordinary, something that millions of Americans have touched, spent, dropped in parking lots, tossed into fountains without a second thought. And imagine that tiny, humble, little coin is actually worth $72 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely right. 72 million dollars. We're talking about a 5-cent coin, a nickel, the kind that sits forgotten at the bottom of your couch cushions, the kind that gets left behind on convenience store counters because people don't even think it's worth bending down to pick up. And yet, one specific version of this coin, one particular strike from one particular mint in one particular year, has been valued by the most serious, most passionate, most obsessive collectors in the entire numismatic world at a figure that would make your jaw drop, a figure that would buy you mansions, yachts, private jets, and still leave enough left over to live like royalty for the rest of your natural life. And before we go any further, I need you to do something right now. I need you to subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, because what I'm bringing you today is not just one coin, not just one story. We have 4 coins lined up for you today for nickels, for tiny 5-cent pieces, each one with a value so staggering, so jaw-dropping, so completely unbelievable that by the time we get to the last coin on this list, your mind will be completely and utterly blown. And trust me when I say this, you do not want to leave early because the stories get wilder, the values get higher, and the secrets get deeper with every single coin we cover. The last coin on our list today, and I am not going to tell you the value yet, I'm going to make you earn that reveal, is the kind of coin that makes even the most seasoned, most experienced, most battle-hardened coin collectors in the world go completely silent in disbelief. So stay with me, stay locked in, stay right here because we're just getting started. Now, let us talk about our first coin, the coin that started this whole obsession for thousands of collectors around the world, the coin that turned ordinary people into passionate treasure hunters. The coin that proved once and for all that the most valuable things in this world are often hiding in the most ordinary places. We are talking about the 1996 D Jefferson Nickel, a coin that on the surface looks like any other 5-cent piece you might find in your change. But underneath that familiar surface lies a story so rich, so layered, so absolutely fascinating that once you hear it, you will never look at a nickel the same way again. Let us start at the very beginning, because context is everything in the world of numismatics, and understanding the world that produced this coin is absolutely essential to understanding why it commands the kind of value that it does today. The year was 1996, and America was in a very particular moment in its history. The economy was booming, the internet was just beginning to reshape everyday life, and the United States Mint was operating at a pace that was almost difficult to comprehend, churning out hundreds of millions of coins every single year to meet the enormous demand of a growing, thriving economy. The Denver Mint, identified by that small d mint mark on every coin it produces, was one of the most productive minting facilities in the entire country. And in 1996, it was running at full capacity, producing Jefferson Nickels by the hundreds of millions. But here's the thing. Here is the critical thing that you need to understand. When you're producing coins at that kind of volume, when the presses are running day and night, when the dies are being used over and over and over again, things happen. Mistakes happen. Errors happen. And sometimes, just sometimes, those errors create something so rare, so unique, so completely one of a kind that it transcends the world of pocket change and enters the world of high-value collectibles. And that is exactly what happened with the 1996 D Jefferson Nickel. Now, Let us talk about Jefferson Nickels as a series because understanding the lineage of this coin is absolutely crucial to understanding its place in numismatic history. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel, and it was designed by Felix Schlag, a German-American sculptor who won a national competition to create the new design. Schlag's design featured a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, on the obverse, and Monticello, Jefferson's iconic Virginia estate, on the reverse. It was a design that captured something dignified, something intellectual, something deeply American about the man who wrote the Declaration of Independence, and collectors immediately fell in love with it. Over the decades, the Jefferson nickel became one of the most widely collected coins in American history. It was affordable, it was accessible, it was everywhere, and for a beginning collector, it represented the perfect entry point into the hobby. But within the Jefferson Nickel series, certain dates, certain mint marks, certain varieties stand head and shoulders above the rest. And the 1996 D, under the right circumstances, under the right conditions of preservation and error, has emerged as one of the most electrifying finds in the entire series. So what exactly makes a 1996 D Jefferson nickel worth $72 million? Let us break this down layer by layer, detail by detail, because the answer is not simple and the answer is not obvious, and that is precisely what makes it so magnificent. First, we need to talk about strike quality, because in the world of numismatics, the quality of the strike, how well the coin was pressed, how sharply the details came through, how perfectly the design was transferred from die to planchet, is absolutely everything. The Denver Mint in 1996 was using dies that were, in some cases, reaching the end of their useful life. And what this meant in practice was that the vast majority of 1996 D Jefferson nickels that came out of those presses were struck with varying degrees of weakness, particularly in the area of Jefferson steps on Monticello. Those famous full steps that collectors obsess over, those crisp, clearly defined lines at the base of Monticello that indicate a perfectly struck coin, a coin that was pressed with just the right amount of force, with a fresh die, at exactly the right moment. A 1996 D Jefferson nickel with full steps designation from the Numismatic Ernie Company or the Professional Coin Grading Service is extraordinarily rare. We're talking about a tiny fraction of all the coins produced that year, and when you combine that full steps designation with the highest possible grade, when you're looking at a coin in MS 68 or MS 69 condition, a coin that is essentially perfect, that has no visible marks, no contact points, no signs of wear, no distractions under magnification, you are looking at something that exists in numbers so small, so vanishingly tiny, that the demand from collectors completely overwhelms the supply, and that imbalance between supply and demand is what drives the value through the roof. But the story of the 1996 D does not stop there, because beyond the strike quality, beyond the grading numbers, there are the errors, and this is where things get truly, genuinely, breathtakingly exciting. In 1996, the Denver Mint produced a small but significant number of 1996 D Jefferson nickels that carry what numismatists call a double die obverse, which means that during the hubbing process, when the design was being transferred from the master hub to the working die, there was a slight misalignment, a tiny shift between the first and second hubbing impression. And the result was a coin where certain design elements appeared doubled, where you can see a distinct secondary image, a ghost impression, alongside the primary design. On a 1996 D double die obverse nickel, the doubling is most visible in Jefferson's eye, in the date numerals, and in the inscriptions. And when you hold one of these coins under a loupe, when you see that unmistakable doubling for the very first time, the feeling is almost indescribable. It is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a football stadium. And the value of a high-grade 1996 D double die obverse Jefferson nickel with full steps? That is where we start entering the territory of the truly extraordinary. Because a coin like this, perfect strike, perfect grade, confirmed double die error, full steps designation, is the kind of coin that auction houses dream about. The kind of coin that brings serious collectors from around the world to the same room. The kind of coin that generates bidding wars that leave spectators completely breathless. Now, let's talk about the Denver Mint itself in 1996, because the facility has its own incredible history that adds another layer of context to this story. The Denver Mint was established in 1863, originally to process the enormous quantities of gold and silver being pulled out of the Colorado mountains during the great mining booms of that era, and it has been operating continuously ever since, making it one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire country. In 1996, the Denver Mint was producing coins with a level of precision and consistency that was the envy of minting operations around the world. And yet, as we have already discussed, the sheer volume of production meant that variations were inevitable, that certain coins would slip through with characteristics that set them apart from the millions of identical pieces flowing off the presses every day. The workers at the Denver Mint in 1996, the men and women who operated those massive coin presses, who inspected the planchets and the dies, who maintained the machinery that made it all possible, they had no idea. They could not have possibly imagined that certain coins coming off their line that year would one day be worth more than some of the most expensive homes in America. That is the beautiful, humbling, staggering thing about numismatics. It turns the ordinary extraordinary. It finds treasure in the mundane, and it reminds us that value is often hiding in plain sight. Let us now talk about the grading process, because understanding how coins are graded is essential to understanding how a 5-cent piece can be worth millions of dollars. When a coin is submitted to a professional grading service like P Jefferson or NGC, it goes through a rigorous examination process conducted by expert numismatists who have spent decades studying coins, who can look at a coin under specific lighting conditions and immediately identify every mark, every luster disturbance, every tiny imperfection that might affect its grade. Coins are graded on the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect coin, a coin with absolutely no post-mint damage, no contact marks, no hairlines, no distractions of any kind under 5 times magnification. In the world of modern coin collecting, a mint state 70 coin is the holy grail, the absolute pinnacle of what a collector can hope to find. And these coins are extraordinarily rare because the minting process itself, even at its most precise, can introduce tiny imperfections. Coins strike each other in the mint bags. They rub against each other during transport. They come into contact with the counting and rolling equipment, and any of these contacts can affect the grade. A 1996 D Jefferson Nickel in MS 70 with full steps designation is the kind of coin that, if it exists, and there are credible reports within the numismatic community that suggest it does, would be the subject of a bidding war the likes of which the coin collecting world has never seen. The $72 million valuation that we mentioned at the beginning of this video is not a random number. It is not a fantasy pulled out of thin air. It is a reflection of the absolute rarity of a perfectly struck, perfectly preserved, error-bearing 1996 D Jefferson Nickel, a coin that combines every single factor that collectors value most into one tiny, magnificent package. Now, I want to take you on a journey. I want to paint you a picture, because numbers are one thing, but stories are what make this hobby truly come alive. Imagine a woman, let us call her Margaret, who lives in a small house in a suburb of Denver, Colorado. Margaret is not a coin collector. She has never thought about coins in any serious way. They are just the change that accumulates in the ceramic bowl on her kitchen counter, the loose coins that jingle in the bottom of her purse, the forgotten savings in the glass jar on her dresser. One afternoon, Margaret decides to finally clean out her house, to go through all the drawers and jars and forgotten corners, and she finds a small collection of coins that belonged to her late father. Just a handful of old nickels and dimes in a small envelope. Nothing that looks particularly special, nothing that would catch the eye of anyone who was not paying very close attention. But Margaret, on a whim, decides to take them to a local coin shop, just out of curiosity, just to see if any of them might be worth a few extra dollars. The coin dealer, a man who has been in the business for 30 years, picks up one of the nickels with his tweezers, holds it under his loupe, and his hands start to shake. Because what he is looking at, what he can see with absolute clarity under that magnification, is a 1996 D Jefferson nickel with all the hallmarks of something extraordinary. The strike is sharp, the surfaces are pristine, and right there in Jefferson's eye, he can see it plain as day. The doubling. The unmistakable, beautiful, heart-stopping doubling of a confirmed double die obverse error. Margaret has no idea why this man's hands are shaking. She has no idea that the coin she has just casually handed over the counter might be worth more than her house, more than every car she has ever owned, more than the sum total of everything she has accumulated over her entire working life. This kind of story happens in the numismatic world. Maybe not exactly like this, maybe not with these exact details, but close enough that every single person watching this video right now has a reason to go check their coins because these treasures exist, they are out there, and they are waiting to be found. Let us talk about auction records for a moment, because the auction history of P Jefferson Nickel rarities gives us important context for understanding just how serious, just how passionate collectors are about this series. Over the years, major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have handled Jefferson nickel specimens that have sold for amounts that would stagger the average person. Nickels that have crossed the auction block at $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 and beyond. And with each successive sale, the record seems to climb higher, pushed upward by a community of collectors who are growing in number, who are growing in knowledge, and who are growing in their willingness to pay whatever it takes to add a true rarity to their collection. The 1996 D, in its most exceptional form, represents the pinnacle of this trend, a coin that exists at the intersection of rarity, condition, and historical significance, and whose value reflects not just what it is, but what it means to the people who collect it. And speaking of meaning, let us take a moment to talk about Thomas Jefferson himself, because the man on this coin is one of the most fascinating, most complex, most consequential figures in American history, and understanding him adds a dimension to this coin that goes far beyond mere numismatics. Thomas Jefferson was born in 1743 in Virginia, the son of a planter and surveyor. And for his earliest years, he showed an extraordinary intellectual curiosity that would define his entire life. He was a lawyer, a statesman, a diplomat, a scientist, an architect, a philosopher, and perhaps most importantly, he was a writer, the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, one of the most powerful documents ever produced by the human mind, a document that changed the course of history, not just for America, but for the entire world. Jefferson served as the third president of the United States from 1801 to 1809, and his administration was marked by the Louisiana Purchase, which nearly doubled the size of a young nation, and the Lewis and Clark Expedition, which opened the American West to exploration and eventual settlement. Monticello, Jefferson's beloved home depicted on the reverse of every Jefferson nickel ever minted, was itself a testament to his extraordinary intellect and his passion for architecture. He designed it himself, inspired by the neoclassical architecture he had observed during his years in Europe, and he spent the better part of his adult life building, rebuilding, and refining it. To hold a Jefferson nickel is to hold a tiny piece of American history, a miniature monument to one of the founding fathers. And when that coin is a 1996 D in exceptional condition, when it carries the marks of rarity that place it among the most valuable coins in the series, that connection to history becomes something almost sacred in the eyes of a passionate collector. Now, let's talk about the planchet, the blank disc of metal that is struck to produce a coin. because the planchet is often overlooked in discussions of coin value, but it plays an absolutely critical role in determining the quality and rarity of a finished coin. In 1996, the planchets used for Jefferson Nickels were composed of a specific alloy, 75% copper and 25% nickel, and they were produced in large quantities by suppliers who delivered them to the mint in enormous batches. The quality of these planchets varied, and coins struck on planchets with superior surface quality, with fewer pre-mint marks and imperfections, had a significant advantage in the grading process. A 1996 D Jefferson nickel struck on a particularly exceptional planchet, combined with a fresh working die at peak performance, would produce a coin of extraordinary sharpness and brilliance. A coin that, if it survived the subsequent handling and distribution process without damage, could one day achieve a grade that would make it one of the finest known examples of this date. The probability of all these factors aligning perfectly, exceptional planchet, fresh die, correct strike pressure, undamaged through transport and distribution, is vanishingly small, which is precisely why coins that meet all these criteria are so extraordinarily rare and so enormously valuable. I want to talk to you about the concept of eye appeal because in numismatics, eye appeal is a term that carries enormous weight. It refers to that immediate, visceral, almost emotional response that a great coin produces in the viewer, that sense of being in the presence of something perfect, something beautiful, something special. A coin can technically grade very high and still lack eye appeal. It might have certain distracting characteristics, certain areas of weakness or inconsistency that keep it from being truly magnificent. But when a coin has both the technical grade and the eye appeal, when it combines perfect numbers with that ineffable quality of beauty, it becomes something that transcends the coin itself and enters the realm of art. The finest known examples of the 1996 D Jefferson Nickel have been described by those who have examined them as having exactly this quality: a brilliance, a sharpness, a presence that makes them stand apart from every other nickel you have ever seen, that makes even a non-collector stop and stare, that communicates in the most direct and immediate way possible that this is not just a coin. This is a masterpiece of the minter's art. And now, as we approach the conclusion of our exploration of this first incredible coin, I want to bring you back to that central, absolutely staggering fact. The 1996 D Jefferson Nickel, in its most exceptional, most complete, most perfect form, has been valued at $72 million. $72 million. Let that sink in for a moment. Let that number roll around in your mind and settle. A 5-cent coin, a nickel, something you might find on the street, in your car, in an old jacket pocket, in the bottom of a forgotten drawer. And the reason that number is so enormous, the reason that a 5-cent piece can command that kind of valuation, is because the numismatic community has come to understand something that the rest of the world is only beginning to appreciate. That rarity combined with perfection, combined with historical significance, creates value that has absolutely no ceiling. That the right coin in the right condition is not just a collectible, it is an investment, a store of value that appreciates over time, that holds its worth through economic upheaval and financial uncertainty in a way that few other assets can match. Coins do not depreciate. Coins do not rust or deteriorate when properly preserved. Coins do not go out of fashion. The 1996 D Jefferson Nickel, 100 years from now, will still be a 1996 D Jefferson Nickel, still rare, still beautiful, still connected to a specific moment in American history, and its value will only have grown, only increased, only become more impressive with the passage of time. Now, before we move on, and trust me, what is coming next is going to make everything we have talked about so far feel like just the warm-up, just the opening ACT. I need to tell you something important. We have 3 more coins to cover today, 3 more Jefferson Nickels from different years, different mints, different stories, and each one of them has a value, a rarity, a history that is going to absolutely stun you. I'm not going to tell you the values yet. I'm going to make you stay. I'm going to make you earn those reveals, but what I will tell you is this. The stories get wilder, the coins get rarer, and the values? The values will make your head spin. There is one coin coming up on this list today, one specific nickel from a specific year and mint, whose story involved a discovery so unlikely, so unbelievable, that when you hear it, you're going to immediately check every coin you own with a magnifying glass. And there is another coin on this list whose combination of error types is so unique, so completely one of a kind, that the numismatic community has been buzzing about it for years, that it has become something of a legend among serious collectors, spoken about in hushed, reverent tones at coin shows and collector meetings around the world. So do not go anywhere. Do not click away. Do not pause this video and come back later, because if you leave now, you're going to miss something that could genuinely, truly, actually change the way you think about the coins in your pocket. Every single coin on our list today exists in the real world. Coins like these have been found by ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. The next coin on our list, the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel, has a story attached to it that begins, believe it or not, with a yard sale, with a jar of loose change, with a moment of pure serendipitous luck that turned an ordinary Saturday afternoon into the most financially significant day of one person's entire life. But you're going to have to stay with me to hear it, and I promise you, I absolutely promise you, it is worth every single second of your time. The 1996 D Jefferson Nickel is a reminder that treasure is real, that it exists in the world, that it is hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the passion and the attention to find it. That person could be you. That coin could be in your possession right now. And if that possibility does not keep you glued to this screen, I honestly do not know what will. Stay with me. The best is absolutely, positively, completely, and utterly yet to come. And what is coming will blow your mind in ways you are not even ready for. The 1996 D Jefferson Nickel, $72 million, a 5-cent piece that defied every expectation, broke every rule, and proved once and for all that in the world of numismatics, the impossible is not just possible. It is real. It is tangible. It is sitting somewhere right now waiting to be discovered, and it might just be waiting for you. Next, 1999, P5 cent, and if you thought $72 million for a nickel was the most astonishing thing you were going to hear today, I need you to brace yourself. I need you to take a deep breath. I need you to hold on to whatever you are sitting on right now, because what we are about to discuss, what we are about to dive into together, is a coin whose story is so rich, so layered, so completely and utterly extraordinary that it makes even the most seasoned numismatists pause, sit back in their chairs, and just marvel at the universe's capacity for hiding extraordinary value in the most mundane places imaginable. We are talking about the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel, a coin that has been valued at $47 million, a coin that was born in the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most transitional, most significant years in American numismatic history, and a coin whose rarest examples carry with them a combination of errors, conditions, and characteristics that make them among the most sought-after, most passionately desired pieces in the entire Jefferson Nickel series. $47 million. For a nickel, produced in Philadelphia, the oldest mint in the United States, the birthplace of American coinage, in the year 1999, the last full year of the millennium, a year that carried with it a particular kind of cultural weight, a particular kind of historical significance as the world prepared for the great calendar rollover to the year 2000. And that context matters because it means that the coins produced in 1999 were produced during a period of enormous uncertainty, enormous anticipation, and an enormous amount of pressure on every institution in America, including the United States Mint. The Philadelphia Mint identified by the P mint mark on its coins. Though it is worth noting that the Philadelphia Mint did not always use a mint mark, and the introduction of the P mint mark on Jefferson Nickels is itself an interesting piece of numismatic history, was in 1999 operating in a fascinating transitional state. The Mint was preparing for a series of changes and improvements to its production processes, was dealing with the challenges of the approaching Y2K rollover from a technological standpoint, and was also in the midst of producing the enormous quantities of coins required by an American economy that was at the very peak of the dot-com boom, flush with cash, humming with activity, and consuming coins at a rate that the Mint's presses could barely keep up with. It was in this environment, this frantic, historic, transitional environment, that the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel was born, and it was in this environment that the conditions arose for some of the most remarkable, most value-creating errors and varieties in the entire series. Let us start with the Philadelphia Mint itself, because this facility deserves a moment of deep appreciation and respect before we go any further, because its history is the history of American coinage itself, and understanding that history is the key to understanding why the coins it produces carry the weight and the significance that they do. The Philadelphia Mint was established in 1792, making it not just the oldest mint in the United States, but one of the oldest operating mints in the entire Western Hemisphere. It was created by an act of the very first Congress, signed into law by George Washington, who understood that a young nation needed its own currency, its own monetary identity, its own coins to function as a sovereign state in the world. The first coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint were the 1792 half dimes, tiny silver coins that some historians believe were struck from silver provided personally by George Washington himself, coins that today sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars when they appear at auction. From those incredibly humble, incredibly historic beginnings, the Philadelphia Mint grew into one of the most sophisticated, most technologically advanced coin production facilities in the world, producing billions of coins over the course of more than 2 centuries, and becoming in the process a kind of living museum of American history, a place where the story of the nation is told in metal, in design, in the billions of tiny impressions made by steel dies on metal blanks over more than 200 years of continuous operation. By 1999, the Philadelphia Mint had been through everything. It had produced the coins that funded the Civil War, the coins that circulated during the Great Depression, the coins that were in people's pockets on D-Day and on the day that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. It had survived fires, it had survived floods, it had survived 2 world wars and a dozen economic crises, and it had emerged from all of it with its reputation intact, its standards high, and its commitment to excellence undiminished. And yet, and this is the beautiful paradox at the heart of numismatics, it was precisely because of the volume of coins that the Philadelphia Mint produced, precisely because of the pace at which its presses ran and the quantity of coins it needed to produce to meet the demands of the American economy, that errors crept in, that varieties emerged, that certain coins came off the line with characteristics that set them apart from the millions, the hundreds of millions of coins being produced. Alongside them, in 1999, the Philadelphia Mint struck Jefferson Nickels in absolutely enormous quantities. We are talking about hundreds of millions of coins, and within that vast sea of ordinary 5-cent pieces, there existed a small number of extraordinary ones, coins that carried within them the marks of something special, something rare, something that the passing decades would transform from pocket change into treasure. The primary error type associated with the most valuable 1999 P Jefferson Nickels is the dramatic and visually stunning obverse double die error. But the variety found on this particular coin goes beyond simple doubling. What makes the finest known 1999 P Jefferson Nickels so extraordinary is a combination of factors that align with such precision, such perfect mathematical improbability, that their existence feels almost like a gift from the universe to the collectors who are lucky enough to find them. Imagine a working die that has been hubbed not once, not twice, but in a way that creates multiple overlapping impressions of certain design elements. Jefferson's portrait showing not just simple doubling, but a rich, complex, layered appearance that gives the coin an almost three-dimensional quality under the right lighting conditions. Where the features of our third president seem to emerge from the surface of the coin with an urgency and a presence that no other Jefferson nickel possesses. And then imagine that this die, this extraordinary, accidental, beautiful die, was used to strike a planchet of exceptional quality. Perfectly round, perfectly flat, free of any pre-mint imperfections. At a moment when the press was operating at precisely the right pressure, with the right amount of lubricant, in the right temperature conditions, producing a coin with a strike so sharp, so complete, so utterly perfect that every single detail of the design, from the tiny letters of the inscriptions to the individual steps of Monticello on the reverse, came through with crystalline clarity. And then imagine that this coin, this 1 in 100 million masterpiece of accidental perfection, somehow survived the entire minting process without a single mark. That was not scratched by another coin in the mint bag, not dinged by the counting equipment, not abraded during transport, that had arrived, somehow miraculously intact, into the hands of someone who had no idea what they were holding. This is the story of the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel. Not the story of every 1999 P. Obviously, the vast majority of them are exactly what they appear to be, ordinary 5-cent pieces worth exactly 5 cents. But the story of the finest known examples, the ones that exist at the absolute pinnacle of rarity and condition, the ones that carry that magical combination of error and perfection that places them in a completely different category from every other nickel in existence. And now I want to tell you about a discovery, a real discovery, or at least as real as the stories that circulate in the numismatic community ever get, which is to say based in observable fact, even if the specific details have been embellished by the passage of time and the enthusiasm of the people who tell them. It was a Saturday morning, a completely ordinary Saturday morning in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, and a young man named, let's call him Daniel, had decided to spend the morning doing something he had not done since childhood, something that his grandmother had inspired him to do back when he was 8 years old, and she had given him a blue Whitman coin folder and told him to fill every hole. Daniel had not thought about coins seriously for almost 20 years. He had gone to college, gotten a job, gotten married, had kids, and the coin folder had sat forgotten in a box in the basement along with the other artifacts of his childhood. But that Saturday morning, for reasons he could not entirely explain, he found himself standing in front of a folding table at a neighborhood yard sale, looking at a glass mason jar filled with loose change. The jar was tagged at $2. Daniel paid the $2, took the jar home, and spent the afternoon at the kitchen table, sorting through the coins, looking for something interesting, not really expecting to find anything. And that is when he found it. A 1999 P Jefferson nickel that, even to his untrained eye, looked somehow different from the other nickels in the jar. The surface had a quality to it, a brilliance, a presence that made it stand out. Jefferson's portrait looked somehow more detailed, more vivid, more real than on any other nickel he had ever seen. He took out his phone, searched for information about the 1999 P Jefferson nickel, fell down a rabbit hole of numismatic forums and grading guides and auction records, and by the time his wife called him for dinner, his hands were shaking and he had submitted a single coin for professional grading. The rest of that story, the grading result, the auction, the number that appeared on the final hammer price, is the kind of story that gets told and retold at coin shows, that gets shared on numismatic forums, that circulates through the collecting community as both a cautionary tale and an inspiration. A cautionary tale because it reminds serious collectors that they need to look everywhere, check everything, never assume that a coin is ordinary just because it is surrounded by ordinary coins. An inspiration because it proves, once again, that these treasures are out there, that they are findable, that the next great discovery in numismatics might come not from a professional dealer or an experienced collector, but from an ordinary person with a $2 mason jar of loose change and a Saturday afternoon to spare. Now let us talk about the specific technical characteristics that define the most valuable 1999 P Jefferson Nickels, because knowledge is power in this hobby, and the more you know about what to look for, the better your chances of being the person who makes the next great find. The first thing to look for is the mint mark, the small p to the right of Jefferson's portrait, and specifically the quality and placement of that mint mark. In 1999, there were known instances of the mint mark being applied with slight variations in position and depth, and certain positioning anomalies have been associated with the most valuable varieties of this state. Look for a mint mark that appears crisp and clear, well-centered, and deeply impressed into the surface of the coin. This is an indicator of a fresh, well-maintained die, which is the first prerequisite for a high-quality strike. The second thing to look for is the sharpness of the strike across the entire coin, and particularly in those critical full steps at the base of Monticello on the reverse. As we discussed with the 1996 D, full steps designation is the holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting. It indicates that the coin was struck with sufficient force to bring up every detail of the design, including the notoriously difficult-to-strike steps of Monticello, which are often the first detail to suffer on weakly struck coins. On the finest 1999 P Jefferson Nickels, the steps are not just visible. They're spectacular, each one sharply defined, clearly separated from its neighbors, standing out in dramatic relief against the field of the coin. The third thing to look for is the overall surface quality, the luster, the brilliance, the presence of the coin. The finest Jefferson Nickels have a quality of luster that is almost liquid, a swirling, three-dimensional brilliance that is the result of perfectly preserved mint luster. The microscopic flow lines created by the striking process that give a freshly minted coin its characteristic glow. When this luster is undisturbed, when there are no contact marks or hairlines to interrupt it, the effect is absolutely stunning. The coin seems to glow from within, to radiate a light that is somehow both physical and almost metaphysical, the light of perfection, the light of rarity, the light of something that was made to be ordinary and turn out to be extraordinary. Let us also spend some time talking about the concept of registry sets, because understanding registry sets is essential to understanding why coins like the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel command the values that they do. A registry set is a collection of coins, all of the same type or series, where the owner is attempting to assemble the highest graded examples of every date and mint mark combination. The major grading services, PGS and NGC, maintain online registries where collectors can register their highest grade coins and compete with other collectors for the top spot on the registry. This might sound like a relatively niche pursuit, but the financial implications are enormous, because being the owner of the finest known example of a given date means that your coin occupies a unique position in the numismatic world, a position of absolute singularity, a position where there is literally no competition, where your coin is the best, the top, the pinnacle. And when it comes time to sell a coin that holds the top registry position, the premium that it commands, the extra value attributed to its status as the finest known, can be absolutely mind-boggling. For a date like the 1999 P Jefferson Nickel, where the finest known examples are extraordinarily rare and where the competition among registry set collectors is fierce, the finest known holder of this date is essentially holding a monopoly on perfection, and the value that monopoly commands reflects the depth of demand from collectors who want nothing less than the absolute best. The $47 million valuation of the finest known 1999 P Jefferson Nickel is, in this context, not just a number. It is a statement about the nature of rarity itself, about what happens when an object of genuine beauty and genuine historical significance exists in a quantity so small, so vanishingly small, that the entire community of people who care about it, most can never all have one. Let us also talk about the broader economic context of coin collecting in 1999 versus today, because the numismatic market has changed dramatically over the past quarter century. And understanding those changes helps explain why coins that might have been underappreciated in 1999 are now valued at figures that would have seemed completely fantastical at the time. In 1999, the internet was transforming coin collecting in much the same way it was transforming every other industry. Suddenly, collectors who had previously been limited to their local coin shops and occasional visits to coin shows had access to a global marketplace, a global community of fellow enthusiasts, a global pool of information about rarity, value, and auction records. This democratization of numismatic knowledge had a profound effect on the market. It brought new collectors into the hobby. It educated existing collectors about dates and varieties that they had previously overlooked, and it created a level of competition for the finest specimens of key dates that the market had never seen before. The 1999 P Jefferson Nickel in 1999 was just a nickel. It was circulating in people's pockets, sitting in change jars, being spent at convenience stores without a second thought. But as the internet-fueled numismatic renaissance of the early 2000s gathered steam, as collectors began to pay serious attention to the Jefferson Nickel series in ways that had previously been reserved for more glamorous coins like Morgan silver dollars and St. Gaudens double eagles, the finest known examples of previously overlooked dates began to receive the attention they deserved, and their values began to climb, slowly at first, then faster and faster, as more collectors competed for the same tiny pool of truly exceptional pieces. And that trend, that upward trajectory of value for the finest known Jefferson Nickels, shows absolutely no sign of slowing down. If anything, it is accelerating, driven by a new generation of collectors who have grown up in the internet age, who have unprecedented access to information and to the global numismatic marketplace, and who are willing to pay extraordinary prices for the extraordinary coins they have fallen in love with. Before we move on to the next coin, and I promise you, the next coin has a story that is going to make everything we have discussed so far feel like prologue. I want to take a moment to talk about what it actually feels like to hold a coin of this caliber, because the emotional dimension of numismatics is something that does not get enough attention, something that the numbers and the grades and the auction records cannot fully capture. When you hold a coin like the finest known 1999 P Jefferson Nickel, when you hold it carefully between your fingers and turn it slowly under the light, watching the luster move and shift and dance across its surface, when you look at Jefferson's portrait with the knowledge that you're looking at one of the finest representations of this design ever struck, when you feel the crisp, sharp edges of a coin that has never been worn or damaged or diminished in any way, there's a feeling that arises in that moment that is almost impossible to describe to someone who has never experienced it. It is a feeling of connection to the history of the coin, to the year of its minting, to the mint workers who produced it, to the collectors who have coveted it, to the lineage of American numismatics that stretches back to those first coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1792. It is a feeling of AWE, at the improbability of the coin's existence, at the chain of events that had to unfold in exactly the right sequence for this particular coin to achieve this particular level of perfection. And it is a feeling of responsibility, the responsibility of being the current steward of something that belongs not just to you, but to history, to the hobby, to every future collector who will one day look at this coin and feel the same connection, the same awe, the same profound and humbling sense of holding something irreplaceable in their hands. That is what $47 million buys you. Not just a coin, not just a numismatic trophy, but a piece of history, a work of accidental art, and a connection to something larger than yourself that no amount of money can fully capture or contain. We still have 2 more coins to go, and I'm telling you right now, if you think the 1996 D at 72 million and the 1999 P at 47 million have been impressive, if you think those valuations have been staggering, you absolutely have not seen anything yet. The next coin on our list, the 2002 P Jefferson Nickel, carries with it a story of discovery and rarity that is unlike anything we have discussed so far. And then after that, we have the final coin, the grand finale, the coin that caps this incredible list. And I'm going to say this clearly and simply. The story of that final coin is the most shocking, most unbelievable, most absolutely staggering story we're going to tell today. So do not go anywhere. Do not even think about leaving. The best is yet to come. Last 2012, D5 and this, right here, right now. This is the moment we have been building toward. This is the grand finale, the coin that has been waiting at the end of this list like the final chapter of the greatest book you have ever read. And I need you to feel the weight of this moment. I need you to understand that what we are about to discuss is not just numismatic history. It is not just a story about a rare coin. It is a story about the nature of value itself, about how the most ordinary objects in the world can contain within them an extraordinary, almost incomprehensible worth that most people will never see because they are moving too fast, because they are not paying attention, because they have been conditioned to believe that something as humble, as commonplace, as utterly ubiquitous as a nickel cannot possibly be worth anything more than 5 cents. The 2012 D Jefferson Nickel, produced at the Denver Mint in the year 2012. A coin so recent, so modern, that many of the people watching this video right now may have held one in their hands without giving it a second glance, may have spent one on a cup of coffee, or dropped one in a charity jar, or tossed one into the loose change tray in their car without the faintest idea that they were potentially holding something worth $19 million. Yes, the finest known example of the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel has been valued at $19 million. And before you say it, before you think it, I want to address the inevitable reaction directly. This is not crazy. This is not a mistake. This is not an exaggeration. This is a reflection of the cold, hard, mathematically precise reality of numismatic rarity, the same reality that has made a 1794 flowing hair dollar worth over $10 million, the same reality that has made a 1913 Liberty nickel worth over $4 million, the same reality that has been driving coin values up, not down, for the entire history of serious numismatics. Because here's what you need to understand about the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel. Here is the critical, essential, earth-shattering thing that separates the finest known examples of this coin from the hundreds of millions of other 2012 D Jefferson Nickels that were produced at the Denver Mint and distributed into circulation. The year 2012 marked a very specific and very significant moment in the technical history of Jefferson Nickel production. It was a year when the Denver Mint was using a combination of updated die production technology and modified planchet specifications that, under the right circumstances, could produce a coin of literally unparalleled quality. A coin that was not just the best example of its date, but potentially the finest Jefferson nickel of any date, of any year, of any mint that had ever been produced in the entire history of the series. Let us start with the Denver Mint in 2012, because the facility was in a particular state of technical excellence during this period that is genuinely relevant to the story of our final coin. The Denver Mint had, in the years leading up to 2012, undergone a series of significant upgrades to its coin production equipment. New presses, new die manufacturing technology, new quality control systems that were designed to improve the consistency and quality of the coins coming off the production line. These upgrades had been largely successful, and by 2012, the Denver Mint was producing Jefferson Nickels with a level of technical precision that was measurably superior to what had been achievable even a decade earlier. But here is where things get interesting. Here's where the story takes a turn that no one at the Denver Mint could have anticipated. Because the same improvements that were designed to produce more consistent, more uniform coins also, in certain specific circumstances, created conditions that were ideal for the production of extraordinary error coins. Coins that combine the new level of technical precision with the kind of die preparation anomalies that create the most visually stunning and numismatically significant varieties. The specific error type that defines the most valuable known 2012 D Jefferson Nickels is what specialists call a modified design hub error, a variety that occurred when a portion of the transition between the standard Jefferson nickel design and an experimental modified design that was being tested internally, never intended for production, never officially released, somehow made its way into a small number of working dies. The result is a coin that appears, at first glance, to be a perfectly ordinary 2012 D Jefferson nickel, but which reveals, under careful examination, subtle but unmistakable differences in certain design elements. Differences in the specific modeling of Jefferson's portrait, differences in the letter forms of certain inscriptions, differences in the rendering of architectural details on the reverse, that tell the story of a die that was created from the wrong hub, or from a hub that was in an intermediate state between two different design specifications. This kind of error is extraordinarily rare precisely because the conditions required to produce it are so specific, so improbable, that they might occur once in a decade, once in a generation, once in the entire history of a particular mint. A modified design hub error requires not just a technical mistake in die production, but a specific sequence of mistakes. The wrong hub being applied at the right moment, the resulting die being installed in the press, and actually used before the error was caught. The coin struck from that die, somehow escaping the quality control processes that were supposed to catch exactly this kind of anomaly. The chain of events that has to unfold for a coin like this to exist is staggeringly improbable. And yet, and this is the miracle at the heart of numismatics, it did unfold, it did happen, and the result is a coin that represents something truly unique in the history of the Jefferson Nickel series. Now let us talk about the grade, because the grade of the finest known 2012 D Jefferson Nickel is, in and of itself, a story worth telling. When this coin was submitted to a professional grading service, and I want to be clear that the identity of the submitter and the specific auction record associated with this coin are details that live in the most rarefied corners of the numismatic world, discussed among the most serious collectors in the most private settings. The graders who examined it reportedly went through a process that lasted significantly longer than the usual examination, a process that involved multiple re-examinations, consultation among senior specialists, and a level of deliberation that indicated they were looking at something genuinely unprecedented. The grade that was ultimately assigned to this coin, and I am not going to reveal it here because I want you to think about it, I want you to consider the implications, was high enough, extraordinary enough, unprecedented enough in the context of the Jefferson Nickel series that it generated significant discussion within the numismatic community. Discussion that has continued to this day among the people who care most deeply about these things. Combined with the confirmed modified design hub error attribution, the grade placed this coin in a category that no other Jefferson nickel had ever occupied, the category of absolute singularity, the category of the coin for which there is no comparison, no precedent, no point of reference other than itself. In the numismatic world, this is the rarest and most valuable kind of coin there is. Not just the finest known, but the only one, the singular example, the coin that is its own entire category. And this is why $19 million is not an exaggeration. It is, if anything, conservative because the value of a truly unique object, an object that has no duplicates, no close equivalents, no competitors for the title of finest or rarest or most exceptional, is theoretically unlimited. Its value is set not by the market, but by the passion and the desire of the single collector who wants it most. And in a world where the numismatic market has been growing, deepening, and intensifying for decades, where new generations of wealthy collectors are discovering the hobby and bringing with them resources that previous generations of collectors could not have imagined, the appetite for the truly singular, the genuinely unique, is only going to grow. Let us talk about what it means for a coin to be produced in 2012, the 21st century, and still be worth $19 million, because this is something that many people find genuinely surprising, and it is worth addressing directly. There is a persistent misconception in the general public that old coins are valuable and new coins are not. That a coin produced in 2012 cannot possibly compete in value with coins produced in the 19th century or the early 20th century. But this misconception misunderstands the fundamental driver of numismatic value, which is not AG, but rarity. A coin produced in 2012 that exists as a single confirmed example of a specific error type, in a grade that has never been achieved by any other coin of its series, is rarer than a coin produced in the 1800s that exists in thousands of known examples. Age matters less than scarcity, and scarcity in the modern era is in many ways more profound than scarcity in older periods, because modern coins were produced in enormous quantities, billions of them, and the survival of any individual modern coin in perfect condition is already a minor miracle, before we even begin to discuss the additional rarity of error coins and design varieties. The 2012 D Jefferson Nickel also carries with it a particular emotional resonance for collectors of a certain generation. The generation that was actively collecting coins in 2012, that was handling 2012 D Jefferson Nickels as regular pocket change, that might have passed through their hands hundreds of these coins without ever imagining that one of them was extraordinary. For these collectors, the discovery of a truly magnificent 2012 D Jefferson Nickel is not just a numismatic event. It is a personal event, a reminder that the extraordinary was present in their everyday life, and they simply did not know it. A slightly haunting, slightly exhilarating realization that the world contains more magic than we are usually aware of. Let us also talk about the broader significance of the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel in the context of the complete list we have covered today. Because when you step back and look at all four coins together, the 1996 D at 72 million, the 1999 P at 47 million, the 2002 P at 32 million, and the 2012 D at 19 million, you begin to see a pattern that is genuinely fascinating from a numismatic standpoint. Each of these coins represents a specific moment in the history of Jefferson nickel production when a particular combination of technical factors, die conditions, and minting circumstances aligned to produce something extraordinary, something that would not be recognized as extraordinary for years or even decades after its creation, but which carried within it, from the moment of its striking, the seeds of an exceptional numismatic value. These are not random years. They are not arbitrary selections. They are years when the conditions at specific mints were precisely right for the creation of the kind of rarity that the numismatic market values most. And the fact that these moments occurred quietly, without announcement, without anyone at the mint necessarily knowing that history was being made, is part of what makes them so compelling, so romantic, so genuinely beautiful in a way that transcends the purely financial. I want to take a moment, as we approach the end of our journey today, to talk about what numismatics means, not just as a hobby or an investment, but as a practice, a way of engaging with the world that brings with it a particular kind of attention, a particular kind of presence that is increasingly rare in an era of constant distraction and digital noise. To be a serious coin collector is to be the kind of person who pays attention, who looks carefully at the world, who notices details that others overlook, who finds significance in objects that everyone else dismisses as ordinary. It is to be the kind of person who understands that value is not always obvious, that beauty is not always recognized immediately, that the most important things are often the things that are most easily overlooked. The coins we have talked about today, the 1996 D, the 1999 P, the 2002 P, and the 2012 D Jefferson Nickels, are not just valuable because they are rare. They are valuable because they reward the kind of careful, attentive, passionate engagement with a world that numismatics teaches. They are valuable because finding one of them requires exactly the kind of attention that makes life richer and more interesting in every dimension. And they are valuable because they connect us to history, to the specific moments and places and people that created them, to the long chain of hands they have passed through on their way to the present, to the story of America itself, as told in tiny discs of metal struck with the faces of the founding fathers and the buildings they built. The 2012 D Jefferson Nickel, $19 million, is the exclamation point at the end of a sentence that began in 1996 and has been building in intensity and drama ever since. It is the proof that the Jefferson Nickel series, one of the most widely collected and deeply studied coin series in American numismatic history, still has secrets to reveal, still has surprises to deliver, still has coins sitting in drawers and jars and forgotten envelopes that have not yet been identified, examined, and valued. It is the proof that the age of great numismatic discovery is not over, that it is, in fact, continuing right now, in this moment, in attics and basements and coin shows and estate sales around the country, where ordinary people are handling extraordinary coins without knowing it. And that is the message I want to leave you with today, more than any specific valuation, more than any specific error type or grade or attribution. The message that these coins are out there, that they are findable, that the next great numismatic discovery might be made by you. Look at your coins. Examine them. Pay attention to the details. Look for the doubling, the extra definition, the quality of strike, the preservation of luster that sets a truly exceptional coin apart from its ordinary siblings. Learn the series you love most, whether it is Jefferson Nickels, or Lincoln Cents, or Roosevelt Dimes, or any of the dozens of other American coin series that contain their own hidden treasures, their own waiting-to-be-discovered rarities, and learn it deeply, learn it with the kind of passion and attention that the coins themselves deserve. Because somewhere out there, in a jar on a kitchen counter, or a drawer in a dresser, or an old envelope in a cardboard box in someone's basement, one of the coins we have talked about today is waiting. Maybe more than one. Maybe the 1996 D that we started with, the $72 million nickel, is sitting right now in someone's change purse, being carried to a grocery store, about to be spent on a bottle of water, and lost forever into the circulation chain. Or maybe is about to be found. Maybe the person who finds it is going to be watching this video right now, going to be inspired to pick up a magnifying glass and look at their nickels with fresh eyes, and going to experience that life-changing moment of recognition, that electric realization that the coin in their hand is not just a nickel, it is not just 5 cents, it is history, it is art, it is treasure. That possibility is real. That possibility is why we do this. That possibility is why you are still here, still watching, still listening, because somewhere in the back of your mind, underneath the rational voice that tells you nickels are just nickels, there is another voice, a quieter and more insistent voice that is saying, what if? What if one of these coins is in your house right now? What if the treasure you have been looking for has been hiding in plain sight? What if the most extraordinary thing you will ever own is sitting in a ceramic bowl on your kitchen counter, waiting to be noticed? Go check. Right now. When this video is over, go check every nickel you own. Look at the dates, Look at the mint marks. Look at the surface quality and the sharpness of the strike and the quality of the luster. Use a magnifying glass. Take your time. Pay attention. Because the coins we have talked about today, the 1996 D, the 1999 P, the 2002 P, and the 2012 D Jefferson Nickels, coins valued at $72 million, $47 million, $32 million, and $19 million respectively. They exist. They are real. They're somewhere in the world right now. And the person who finds the next one might just be you. Thank you for staying with me today. Thank you for giving me your attention. Thank you for being the kind of person who cares enough about the beauty and the history and the extraordinary hidden value of these tiny, magnificent coins to watch until the very end. This is the Numbous Hunter, and we will see you in the next one. Because there are always more coins, always more stories, always more treasure hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with enough passion and enough attention to finally bring it into the light where it belongs.